And I saw her bent over a trash can in downtown Chicago, picking through garbage for aluminum cans. My ex-wife. The woman I once loved. The woman I thought had abandoned me. When I learned what she'd done, the sacrifice she made in silence, I wept like I'd never wept before. She saved my life by destroying her own. But before I tell you how we got here, drop a comment below. Where are you watching this from, and what time is it where you are right now? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late July, one of those sweltering Chicago summers, where the heat rises off the pavement in waves. I was driving home in my BMW, the air conditioning on full blast, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, playing softly through the speakers. I'd just closed a major contract for a new residential complex in Lincoln Park. Life was good. Life was comfortable. I loosened my tie at a red light, thinking about dinner. Angela, my current wife, had mentioned something about reservations at that new steakhouse on Michigan Avenue. I wasn't really listening when she told me. I never really listened to Angela anymore, if I'm being honest. The light turned green. I accelerated through the intersection near the loop, my mind already planning the evening. That's when I saw her. At first it was just a flash of movement. A figure hunched over a metal trash bin on the corner of State and Madison. Gray hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Sunburned arms. A faded blue shirt that might have been white once. She was pressing an aluminum can flat with her foot. The metallic crunch echoing in my head, even over the classical music. Something about the way she moved made me look twice. The curve of her shoulders, the way she bent down. Familiar. My heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. I slammed on the brakes without thinking. The car behind me blared its horn long and angry. Tires screeched. Someone shouted out their window. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The woman straightened up, startled by the noise. She turned her face toward the street, toward my car. Those eyes. I knew those eyes. Kendall. Oh God, Kendall. My ex-wife. The woman I'd divorced 5 years ago. The accountant who used to review spreadsheets at our kitchen table with such precision and care. The woman who loved lilacs and old mystery novels and laughed at my terrible jokes. She was here, on the street, digging through trash. She looked like she'd aged 20 years. Her face was gaunt, sun-weathered, with deep lines around her eyes and mouth. Her clothes hung loose on a frame that had always been slender, but now looked breakable. A large black garbage bag full of cans sat at her feet. Our eyes met across the traffic. For one horrible frozen moment, we just stared at each other. I saw recognition dawn on her face. Then something worse. Fear. She grabbed the bag of cans with both hands and turned away, moving fast. Too fast. Trying to run. No, I heard myself say, "No, no, no." I jerked the wheel right and pulled into the first parking spot I saw half on the curb. I didn't care. The BMW's tires scraped against the concrete with a sickening sound. I fumbled with my seatbelt, threw open the door, and ran. My dress shoes slapped against the hot sidewalk. People moved out of my way, their faces curious and annoyed. A businessman in a suit running through downtown Chicago like a madman. I didn't care about any of them. "Kendall," I shouted, not caring who heard, not caring about the stairs. "Kendall, wait!" She was already at the corner, moving faster now, the bag of cans bouncing against her leg. She didn't look back. She was trying to escape, trying to disappear before I could reach her. But I was faster. I caught up to her before she could cross the side street. My hand reached out and grabbed her arm. The moment my fingers touched her skin, I felt it. Rough, weathered, like leather left too long in the sun. "Kendall, please," I said, breathing hard. "Just stop." She froze but wouldn't look at me. Her head stayed down, eyes fixed on the cracked sidewalk. The bag of aluminum cans hung from her other hand. "Let me go, Edward." Her voice was hoarse, worn down. "You don't need to see this." "See what I moved to face her. "Kendall, what happened? 5 years ago you were an accountant. You had a career. 5 years ago was a lifetime ago." She finally looked up, and I saw shame burning in her eyes. Things change. People fall. "That's not an answer." My throat was tight. "How does someone like you end up living on the streets? Life has its ups and downs." There was no emotion in her voice, just flat acceptance. I pulled out my wallet with shaking hands and took out everything inside. $300. "Here, please. Let me help you. We can get you a hotel room, some clothes." "No." She stepped back like the money was poison. "Kendall, don't be stubborn. I don't want your charity, Edward." Her voice was firm now. She stood straighter, and for a moment I saw the woman she used to be. Proud, dignified. This isn't charity, you need help. I don't need help. She adjusted the bag on her shoulder. I work, I collect cans. I sell them to the scrapyard on South Side. I buy my food. It's honest work. Honest work. I was crying now. But why? What happened? Did you lose your job? Did something go wrong? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I did what I had to do. The words hung in the air. They sounded rehearsed, like she'd told herself this story 1,000 times. What does that mean? I wiped my face with the back of my hand. That doesn't mean anything. Nobody ends up homeless because they did what they had to do. She turned away, preparing to leave again. Please, I said softer now. Just come with me. Somewhere with air conditioning. I'll buy you a meal. We can talk. You don't have to tell me everything. Just let me understand. Please. She stood there for what felt like forever. A bus roared past. People walked around us without a second glance. Finally, she turned her head slightly. One meal, she said quietly. That's all. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The drive to Wicker Park was silent. Kendall sat pressed against the passenger door, hands folded tightly. I'm going to dirty your leather seats, she said quietly. I don't care about the car. I found a small cafe on North Avenue. Inside, I ordered 2 Turkey Club sandwiches and iced coffee. Kendall used to love iced coffee in the summer. When the food came, she tried to eat slowly, but hunger won. Within seconds, she was devouring the sandwich like she hadn't eaten in days. I couldn't eat. I just watched her chest aching. This woman had once made homemade pasta and sang off key to 80s music. Now she was eating like every bite might be her last. Where are you staying? I asked. She took a long drink. There's a shelter near Grant Park. They serve soup at night. It's temporary. My vision blurred. A shelter. Kendall, what happened? You had a career. I made some choices. Bad investments. Took on responsibilities that didn't work out. What responsibilities? The kind that are my problem, not yours. Her voice went flat. We were married for 10 years. We've been divorced for 5. She pushed the plate away. You moved on. You have a new wife. You don't owe me anything. The word stung. Thank you for the meal, she said, standing with her bag of cans. It was the best I've had in weeks, but I need to go. The scrapyard closes at 5. Kendall, wait. I've said too much. She backed toward the door. You shouldn't have stopped. This isn't your burden to carry Edward. What burden? I stood. What are you talking about? But she was already out the door, moving fast down the sidewalk. I stood there, hands shaking. The barista came over. You okay, man? I wasn't. I paid and sat back down. I couldn't leave yet. Couldn't think straight. Responsibilities, burden, bad investments. None of it made sense. Kendall had been meticulous about money. She'd balanced our checkbook to the penny. She'd insisted we save 6 months of emergency funds. She never made risky investments. So what happened? And why did she keep saying it wasn't my burden? What was she protecting me from? I sat there staring at the empty chair across from me, where she'd sat, where she'd eaten like she was starving, where she'd looked at me with shame and fear. Whatever had happened to Kendall wasn't just bad luck. It wasn't just bad choices. Something was very wrong, and I was going to find out what. I left the cafe and drove home in a daze. By the time I pulled into the driveway of our Lincoln Park brownstone, the sun was setting. Inside, Angela was on the couch watching reality TV. She glanced up when I walked in. You're late. I thought we had reservations. Something came up. Work? Yeah. She made a small noise of annoyance, but didn't press. We'd been married for 3 years and barely had real conversations anymore. I need to make some calls, I said. Fine, I'll order takeout. She waved dismissively. I went upstairs to my office and closed the door, sat at my desk and stared at my phone. Stephen Martinez. He still worked at the accounting firm where Kendall had been employed. If anyone knew what happened, it would be him. I found his number and called. He answered on the 3rd ring. Edward, hey man, long time. Stephen, I need to ask you something. It's about Kendall. A pause. Your ex-wife, Kendall. Yeah, what happened to her? Why did she leave the firm? Longer pause. When he spoke, his voice was careful. You don't know... My stomach dropped. Know what? She didn't leave Edward. She was fired. About 3 or 4 years ago. Fired why? The administration received a legal notice. From the IRS. Tax issues. Federal stuff. They said they couldn't keep someone with that kind of trouble on staff. I felt cold. IRS? That doesn't make sense. Kendall kept every receipt for 5 years. I know, none of us believed it either. But the word was, it involved serious money. Government debt. Big stuff. How big? I don't know details. It was hushed up fast. But federal investigation kinda big. They let her go within a week. No severance. I closed my eyes. Federal investigation, tax debt. Did she explain? They escorted her out quick. I tried calling after, but her number was disconnected. He paused. Look, we all knew Kendall. She was the most careful person there. Whatever happened, something must have gone wrong. Yeah, I said quietly. Something went wrong. After I hung up, I sat in silence. IRS, tax debt, federal investigation. 3 or 4 years ago, right around our divorce, maybe right before. None of it made sense. Kendall had been meticulous about money. She balanced our checkbook to the penny. She insisted we save 6 months of emergency funds. She never took risks. So what happened? What could destroy someone's life so completely? And why did she say it wasn't my burden? I pulled open my desk drawer and rifled through old files. Bank statements, tax returns, everything looked clean. But we'd split everything in the divorce. Assets, debts, everything documented. The divorce papers. I needed to see them. We'd gone through everything carefully, hadn't we? Made sure it was fair. Or had we? I hadn't looked at those papers in 5 years. They were somewhere in this house. Probably in the attic with boxes from my old life. The life I'd had with Kendall. I stood up, my decision made. I needed to find those papers. Tonight. Because buried in those documents, there might be an answer to why the most careful woman I'd ever known was now sleeping in a shelter and collecting aluminum cans to survive. Something was very wrong, and I was going to find out what. The house was quiet when I climbed the stairs to the attic. Angela had gone to bed without saying goodnight. The attic door creaked open. Hot, stale air hit my face. I pulled the string for the overhead bulb. Dim yellow light flooded the cramped space. Boxes everywhere. Years of accumulated life packed away and forgotten. I started pulling them down, reading labels. Kitchen, books, winter clothes. 20 minutes in, covered in dust, I found it. A box labeled Legal Edward and Kendall. I sat on the dusty floor and opened it. Inside were folders. Tax returns, property deeds. And there at the bottom, a blue folder. Divorce settlement. Final. My hands shook as I opened it. The first pages were standard. Division of assets. The apartment we'd sold split 50-50. Cars. Savings accounts divided equally. I skimmed through page after page. Nothing unusual. Then page 7. Buried in dense text, a single clause. The party Kendall Morrison voluntarily and fully assumes all fiscal tax and civil responsibilities relating to the period of 2018 through 2020, absolving the party Edward Morrison of any and all liabilities. I stopped breathing. Read it again. And again. 2018 through 2020. 3 specific years. Why would she insist on such a specific clause about tax responsibilities? We were both salaried employees. Taxes withheld automatically. There was no reason for this clause. Unless, my mind raced. 2018 through 2020. What was happening then? Kendall was working as an accountant. For my father's construction company, Franklin Morrison Construction. My blood turned to ice. She'd been managing the books for my father's business for almost 3 years. Then she'd quit suddenly. Said she wanted to try something new. But she hadn't quit. She'd been protecting me. The specific years, the careful legal language absolving me of all liabilities. Kendall had insisted on this clause. She must have. She was taking the fall for something. Something that happened between 2018 and 2020. Something involving taxes. Shell companies. Tax evasion. Federal investigation. My father had done something illegal. Used his company or Kendall's position to commit fraud. And when the IRS investigated, Kendall stepped forward. She took the blame. For me. To protect me from my own father's crimes. Because if she hadn't, I would have been investigated too. The son of the owner, the civil engineer in the same industry. They would have assumed I was involved. My career destroyed. My reputation ruined, so she sacrificed herself instead. I sat there on the attic floor, divorce papers in my lap, my entire world shifting. My father, the man who'd taught me about integrity, the man I'd looked up to my entire life. He'd destroyed Kendall's life to save himself. And she'd let him. For me? I looked at my watch. 2:30 in the morning. First thing today, I was calling Dr. Peterson, the tax attorney. I needed a full investigation into Kendall's case, into my father's business, into everything. I needed the truth. All of it. The next morning, I was on the phone before Angela even woke up. Dr. Peterson, this is Edward Morrison. I need your help. Harrison Peterson was the best tax attorney in Chicago. We'd worked together on a few development projects over the years. If anyone could untangle this mess, it was him. Edward, good morning. What can I do for you? I need you to investigate someone's financial history. My ex-wife, Kendall Morrison, she's in trouble with the IRS, and I need to know exactly what happened. There was a pause. This is personal. Very. All right. Give me her details, and I'll see what I can pull. I gave him everything I had. Her full name, social security number, the years in question, 2018 through 2020. I'll call you when I have something, he said. The next 2 days were torture. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, seeing Kendall's face, that rough sunburned skin, the shame in her eyes. Angela noticed, of course. You're acting strange, she said over breakfast on the second day. Is something wrong at work? Just a difficult project. She didn't press. She never did. On the afternoon of the second day, my phone rang. Dr. Peterson. I answered before the first ring finished. Tell me. Edward. His voice was grave. I have the report. It's worse than we imagined. My stomach dropped. How bad? Your ex-wife has an executed tax debt of approximately $1.2 million. The room spun. What? $1.2 million. The IRS has frozen what little assets she had left, garnished any wages. She's been blacklisted from most professional positions. How? My voice cracked. How does an accountant accumulate that kind of debt? She made $60,000 a year. She didn't accumulate it herself, Dr. Peterson said. This debt stems from a shell company. Multiple shell companies, actually. They move significant money around evaded taxes on commercial construction projects. We're talking about fraud on a substantial scale. But Kendall's name doesn't appear anywhere as a partner or owner. But legally, she assumed full responsibility. She signed documents, made statements to federal investigators. I closed my eyes. She confessed. Yes. According to the record, she confessed to being the sole architect of the scheme, said she acted alone. The investigation was closed. But that's not true. No, Dr. Peterson said quietly. I don't believe it is. Here's the strange part. The original documents, the ones that set up the shell companies, show electronic signatures from a woman's personal accounts. But when you dig deeper, the digital trail becomes confused, almost deliberately so. What do you mean? Someone covered their tracks, but not well enough. The trail leads back to family documents, shared accounts, business records from Franklin Morrison Construction. My heart stopped. Edward, I need to ask you something. Is Franklin Morrison your father? I couldn't speak. Edward, yes, I whispered. He's my father. Dr. Peterson was quiet for a moment. I think your ex-wife threw herself in front of a legal train to save someone very close to you. And I think you know who. I hung up, sat there with the phone in my hand, everything crystallizing into horrible clarity. My father had used Kendall, used her position as his accountant, used her access to create fraudulent companies, to evade taxes, to steal. And when the IRS came knocking, Kendall had stepped forward and said it was all her, to protect me. Because if my father went down, I would have been investigated too. The son, the engineer, the one who benefited from his father's business success. She'd lost everything to keep me safe, from my own father. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. Angela looked up from her magazine. Where are you going? To see my father. I didn't wait for her response. I drove to my father's house in Evanston like a man possessed. He lived alone now in a house too big for one person. I didn't knock. The front door was unlocked. I walked straight in and found him in his armchair by the window reading the Tribune. He looked up and smiled. Edward, what a nice. I threw the folder onto the coffee table. Papers scattered everywhere. His smile died. What did you do between 2018 and 2020 using Kendall's information? His face went white. The newspaper slipped from his hands. Edward, don't lie to me. I know about the shell companies, the $1.2 million, the IRS investigation, everything. His hands started shaking. I needed to solve problems, he said quietly. The business was failing. My name was burned. I couldn't get credit anywhere. So you used your daughter-in-law's identity? You opened fraudulent companies in her name, created a $1.2 million debt. It was supposed to be temporary. His voice cracked. I swear I was going to pay it back, but things moved too fast. The IRS came. Where does Kendall come in? Why is she sleeping in a shelter? Why did she lose everything? He closed his eyes, tears when he opened them. She found out. She was going through the books and saw discrepancies. She confronted me, threatened to report me. So why didn't she? Because I told her what would happen to you. The words hit like a fist. What? The companies were in her name, yes. But you're my son, a civil engineer on projects I had connections to. If police investigated, they'd look at you too. Assume you knew, that you benefited. I felt sick. Your career would be destroyed, your reputation. You could go to prison, Edward, for crimes you didn't even know about. So she took the blame? She said she wouldn't let anything happen to you. He was crying now. She went to the IRS, met with investigators, told them she was the architect of everything, that she'd acted alone, that you and I were innocent, and you let her. She made me swear not to tell you, said if you found out you'd try to take the blame or hate me forever. She'd rather lose you as a husband than watch you lose your freedom. So she sold everything, the apartment, the car, her savings, to pay your debts, to pay fines, lawyers, restitution. But it wasn't enough. The criminal case destroyed her. No firm will hire someone with a fraud conviction. She couldn't find work, couldn't pay rent. I didn't know she'd ended up on the streets, I swear. I stared at him, this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me about honor and integrity. You taught me to do the right thing no matter the cost, I said. And then you did the most despicable thing imaginable. I was trying to protect you, by sacrificing an innocent woman. I was shaking with rage. By destroying someone who loved me. You didn't protect me, Dad. You destroyed me. Because now I have to live knowing everything I have, my career, my reputation, my freedom, I only have because she gave up hers. He reached for me. Edward, please. I stepped back. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to sell everything I own if I have to. Pay back every cent. Get her name cleared, and you're going to help me. How? You're going to sign a confession, a legal document admitting your role, admitting she was innocent, and then you're going to stay out of my life until I decide if I can ever forgive you. I turned toward the door. Edward, he called. She did it because she loved you. I stopped, but didn't turn around. I know, I said. That's what makes this so much worse. I walked out into the afternoon sun, got in my car, sat there gripping the steering wheel. My father had destroyed Kendall's life to save his own skin, and she'd let him, for me. I looked at the house one more time. The man inside wasn't the father I thought I knew. Maybe he never had been. I started the engine. I had work to do. Kendall was out there somewhere believing she'd done the right thing, believing her sacrifice had meaning, and I was going to prove her right. I was going to give her back everything she'd lost, starting today. I drove home feeling split in two. Part of me had died with my father, but another part had woken up. When I walked through the door, Angela was on the couch watching television. She glanced up. Did you sort out your crisis? I looked at her. The designer clothes, the complete absence of empathy. Did you give spare change to your homeless ex-wife? She laughed. That's pathetic, Edward. Someone living on the streets. That's just lack of ambition. If people end up homeless, it's their own fault. Something inside me snapped. Get out of my house. She blinked. What? It's over. We're done. Pack your things. She laughed. Don't be dramatic. Over some homeless woman. I can't live another minute next to someone who mocks others' misfortune. Get out. Her face changed. You're serious. Are you insane? The deed is in my name. I want you gone. Today. She screamed, threatened lawyers, but I stood unmoved. An hour later, she was gone. The house was silent. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I waited until evening, then drove to Grant Park. The park at night was dark, scattered figures on benches. I walked through shadows, searching. Then I saw her. On a stone bench near the fountain, curled under a thin blanket, her bag of cans at her feet. Kendall, I said softly. She jerked awake, eyes wide. Edward, you shouldn't be here. It's not safe. I sat beside her and took her cold hand. I know everything. I went to my father's house. I know what you did. Her face crumpled. He wasn't supposed to tell you. I made him tell me. I hired a lawyer. I found the papers. I know you took the fall for him. For me. Tears streamed down her face. You weren't supposed to know. I pulled her into my arms, held her tight. Kendall, I owe you everything. My career, my freedom, my life. You protected me from shame, from prison, from ruin. You carried a weight that wasn't yours out of love. She sobbed, shaking. I had to. I couldn't let them hurt you. But it's over now. I pulled back to look at her. You're not spending another night here. Not on the streets. Not in a shelter. I'm taking you somewhere safe. Tonight. Edward, I can't. This isn't charity. This is justice. This is restitution. You saved my life. Now let me save yours. She tried to protest, but I could see she was exhausted, broken. Please, I said. Let me help you. Let me fix what my father broke. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I helped her stand, gathered her blanket and bag. You won't need these anymore. We walked to my car. I opened the door. She hesitated before getting in. Where are we going? A hotel tonight. Tomorrow we start fixing everything. The debt. Your record. Your career. All of it. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible. Not anymore. You sacrificed everything for me. Now it's my turn. I closed her door and walked around to the driver's side. As I started the engine, I glanced at her. She was crying, but they looked like tears of relief. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. Don't apologize. I reached over and squeezed her hand. You have nothing to be sorry for. My father does. I do. But not you. Never you. We drove through the dark Chicago streets. Away from the park, away from the shelter, away from the life she'd been forced to live. Tomorrow would be the beginning. Tomorrow I'd call Dr. Peterson, sell my assets, do whatever it took. But tonight, I just needed to get her somewhere warm, somewhere safe, somewhere she could sleep without fear. Thank you, she said quietly as we pulled onto Michigan Avenue. No, I said, thank you for everything you did, for everything you sacrificed. She didn't respond, just leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I was finally doing the right thing. The next 3 months became a whirlwind, but a whirlwind with purpose. That first night, I took Kendall to a hotel in River North, a clean room with a soft bed. She stood in the doorway, staring like she'd forgotten such places existed. Tomorrow we start rebuilding, I told her. The next morning, I called Dr. Peterson, settle all of Kendall Morrison's debts, every cent, and file for a professional board review. I have a signed confession from my father. Franklin signed the declaration under pressure. His hand shook. He looked 20 years older. I didn't feel sorry for him. I sold the BMW, the downtown condo, jewelry. Everything went towards settling Kendall's debt. Dr. Peterson worked miracles. Franklin's confession changed everything. The fraud charges were reviewed, overturned. Kendall's record cleared. Every week I visited her, watched her come back to life. Color returned. The sunburn faded. She gained weight, started smiling. You don't have to keep doing this, she said once. Yes, I do. 3 months passed. On a warm October afternoon, I sat in that same cafe on North Avenue, the same corner table, 2 iced coffees waiting. The door opened. There she was, but not the Kendall from the street. This was someone whole. White blouse, dark slacks, haircut neat, clear bright eyes. Beautiful. She smiled. The real smile from 10 years ago. Sorry I'm late. I couldn't speak. What? She touched her hair. Do I have something? You look amazing. She blushed. I feel amazing. Guess what the accounting firm called? They reviewed my case, offered me my job back. I start Monday. Tears blurred my vision. That's wonderful. She took my hand. You gave me back my life. I shook my head. You saved mine first. I just returned the favor. We're even. Even, she repeated softly. Comfortable silence. Hands clasped. So much lost. So much found. Where do we go from here? I asked. She smiled. Now we have this coffee. Tomorrow maybe dinner. Let's take it slow. We have all the time to rebuild. The important thing is the worst is behind us. Yes, the worst is behind us. We finished our coffee. Talked about small things. Her apartment, my new job, the fall weather, normal, beautiful things. When we left, we walked side by side down North Avenue. Afternoon sun warm on our faces. Leaves turning gold and red. Chicago alive with autumn. We weren't engineer and homeless woman anymore. Not ex-spouses making amends. We were 2 people who'd survived, who'd learned hard lessons about sacrifice and love, who'd been broken and were being made whole. As we walked under the afternoon sun, I realized that true worth isn't measured by what's in your pocket, but by what you're willing to sacrifice for those you love. Kendall had given up everything for me in silence without expectation of reward. She'd destroyed her own life to save mine, and now, walking beside her, I understood this was just the beginning of a new story. Not one built on wealth or status or the things we'd lost, but one built on respect, gratitude, and a love forged in the fires of sacrifice. The kind of love that endures, the kind worth everything. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was. I lived in comfort while the woman who saved my life suffered in silence. I went about my days working, eating at expensive restaurants, sleeping in my warm bed, never once wondering what happened to Kendall after our divorce. Don't be like me. Don't assume everyone who falls on hard times deserves it. Don't judge the homeless person on the street corner without knowing their story. Because sometimes the person digging through trash cans is a hero. Sometimes they're carrying burdens that should never have been theirs. The lesson I learned the hard way is this. True love isn't about grand gestures or romantic words. It's about sacrifice. It's about standing between someone you love and destruction even when it costs you everything. Kendall taught me that. She gave up her career, her home, her dignity, all without asking for thanks or recognition. If I could go back, I'd pay more attention. I'd ask more questions. I'd notice when someone I loved suddenly disappeared from my life without explanation. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward with open eyes and open hearts. Grandpa's stories like this one remind us that every person has a history we don't see. My grandfather used to say that God puts people in our path for a reason, sometimes to help us, sometimes for us to help them. This true story proved him right. Today, Kendall and I are rebuilding, slowly, carefully. We're learning to trust again, and every day I'm grateful for the second chance we've been given. Because Grandpa's stories about redemption aren't just tales from the past, they're happening right now, all around us. This true story is mine, but maybe you have one too. What's your true story of sacrifice or redemption? Have you ever discovered someone's hidden struggle too late? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this Grandpa's stories touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss these real stories about love loss and second chances that remind us what truly matters in life.